How's it going, guys? My name is LongBarrel and welcome to my 2018 room tour slash setup tour, whatever you want to call it. In this video, I'm going to show you guys what my room looks like right now, what my setup is. After the room tour, I'm going to be doing a review on the Gamdias Talos P1 mid-tower gaming case. So if you guys want to stick around for that, that would be amazing. But without further ado, let's get into the actual room tour. Alrighty, so starting with the right side of my room, as you guys can see, I have a big Kazakhstan flag on my wall. As you guys may or may not know, I am from Kazakhstan. I was born there, came to Canada when I was 8 years old. Fun fact, this is actually the flag that I used to travel to Europe this year to all the festivals. The little seahorse in the middle is actually from Tomorrowland. Up at the top is just like some of my personal stuff, like my play button. There's a drawing of me and like a plant and whatever. My goal for my room is to cover my walls in all the flags that I bring with me to festivals. So next up, I'm going to put up a Canadian flag and continue filling my walls up with random ass flags from all around the world. Oh yeah, I also have a couch in my room. Up on the wall in front of my computer, as you can see, the flag theme continues. This is the official flag from Tomorrowland when I went last year in 2017. The little dolphin above it is a hat that I was wearing throughout the time, which was quite a highlight of my trip there. That's why I decided to post it up on top of that Tomorrowland flag. All right, now we're getting into the good stuff. This is my actual setup. As you can see, it's quite simple. I would also usually have a second monitor set up just to the right of my main monitor, but just because I want to show off the case, I decided not have it on my desk for the video. The chair that I'm currently using is an Ewin Racing gaming seat that I got a while back as a review unit. Been using it ever since and I love it. The keyboard that I'm using is a Corsair K70 Lux. Brown switches mechanical keyboard, along with my mouse, which is a G502 Spectrum from Logitech that is sitting on a Cologne 2017 mousepad that I attended last year in 2017. My headset's nothing special. It's the HyperX Cloud 2s. I've been using this for quite some time now and I love it. My recording mic is the Audio-Technica AT2020, the USB version. Nothing really too special, just a really solid mic. The monitor that I play on is an Acer XB270H. It's a 144Hz monitor with G-Sync. I got it a while back and it cost me around like 600 bucks Canadian. As for the tower itself, as you can see, this thing is a beast. It is inside a Gamdias Talos P1 gaming case, which I'll be doing a review on right after this room tour. Some of the highlights for the specs: I have the GTX 1080 Ti from EVGA and an i7-7700K CPU powering this machine. I will leave the full spec list down in my description, so go check that out if you are interested. And that's pretty much going to do it for the room tour. As you saw, it's a pretty quick room tour just because it was a very simple setup. There's nothing really too fancy about this room. I personally like it. It works for me. What do you guys think about it? Please let me know in the comment section down below. And now we're going to get into the review of the Talos P1 gaming case from Gamdias, which they were so kind enough to send me over. As you guys may or may not know, I've been working with Gamdias for a very long time now, and they're a company that I fully support with all their products, as I really do enjoy trying out their products and of course working with them. For this review, they have asked me to try out their super sleek Talos P1 gaming case. The key features of this case are the two swing side tempered glass doors on both sides of the case, the trapezoidal tempered glass up on top and on front of the case, and of course 3 120mm RGB dual ring rainbow fans, which actually blew me away when I first turned on the PC, which you guys will see a bit later in this video. I just want to start off by saying that this is definitely not a perfect case. It has its flaws. I definitely had some frustrations with it when I was putting together this build. And the second thing is that this is actually not a brand new build. I actually had to transfer all of my components from my previous build into this one. If you guys haven't watched my previous setup video that I did about a year ago, you guys can watch it in the card on the top right hand corner right now. So one of the biggest reasons why I agreed to do this review was because not only I was going to review the case, they were also going to drop in a brand new 750 watt 80 plus gold certified power supply, along with a 240mm closed loop cooler, which is obviously a big plus, as I get to try out 2 additional components and not have to take apart my custom water cooling loop, which was in my previous build. So putting everything together inside the case was actually nothing special. It behaves just like a regular case would. One of the things I really liked about this case is the amount of vents that they created for running cables through to the front of the case from the back. On top of that, the top and front panels do come off for easier access. All you have to do is just unplug the couple of LED connectors and then both panels will come off fully. Sliding in the motherboard was actually a super easy process. Once I clipped it into the IO port and screwed in all the screws, pretty much the easiest part of the build was already done. So the next step for me was to install my SSD and 2 hard drives. Here's where my first set of criticism comes in for this case. So this case features just 2 hard drive / SSD drive bays, and they also have some screw ports for SSDs on the back side of the case. My criticism here is that a lot of people might have more than just 2 hard drives, which would be obviously problematic trying to mount the other hard drives in the back, as they take up a lot more space than SSDs. Luckily for me, I only have 2 hard drives at the moment, but if I do choose to expand a little bit later down the line, I'm gonna have some trouble finding another spot for my hard drive. Other than that, the drive bays were super easy to install. Just pop the hard drives in and slide them right into the slot, set up your connections, and you're pretty much good to go from there. The SSD you have to screw on from the back side of the case, which took a little bit of effort, but at the end of it, it only took me a couple of minutes. My next plan of action was to route all the power stuff from the power supply into the components. And this is where we can talk a little bit about the power supply itself. So the Astrape P1 750 watt RGB power supply is fully modular, as you can see from the video, but the cables themselves do look a little bit lackluster in design and just overall feel. Most modern power supplies have some sort of braiding or even custom sleeving on the cables themselves, which not only make the power supply cables look good, it also makes it a lot easier to work with than having a bunch of rubber wires poking out everywhere. As you will see just a little bit later in the video, after I wired all of the power supply cables, the back turned into a really big mess, as I had all of these rubber cables sticking out of everywhere without any space to kind of contain them all, which makes it look like such a big mess in the back, which was one of the things I really did not like about that. Alright, moving on to the next component. At this point, I decided to install the water cooling unit, which I gotta give them a lot of compliments on this one. Everything about the installation, everything about how it mounted was super perfect and super easy to do. It's super light, it doesn't take up a lot of space, and I really feel like they've done a really good job with this cooler. One thing I will say, however, is that my box unfortunately did not come with a quick installation guide, which I had to dig up on their website, which is no biggie, but I feel like it's just something that they could have included in the box. The configuration I went for here was I was going to have the fans pulling air in, so I positioned them accordingly, mounted the radiator onto the case, which again was also super easy as they provided all the screws necessary. After popping off the top panel and screwing it on from the top was a super effortless process. The next thing to do was to mount the heatsink onto the CPU. Cool thing is that they provided their own thermal paste compound, which I applied in a bit of a cross-shaped pattern, which turned into an actual blob. Following the instructions, mounting the heatsink into the back plate was super easy. Going around in the star pattern, tightening them all, and just like that, the cooler was mounted and ready to go. One of the last things still left to do was to install the graphics card. So I grabbed my EVGA GTX 1080 Ti and put that bad boy in pretty much with zero effort. In this case, you do have to pop the little back PCIe protector slots right out of the graphics card, so you can't actually reattach them, which might be a bummer for some people, but when do you ever reuse those little protector slots anyways? So I left some of the boring stuff out, such as the cable management, but I do want to talk to you guys a little bit about the cables themselves and trying to manage them in this particular case. So the upside is that they provided a bunch of zip ties for you to zip tie your cables around. Unfortunately, the biggest deal breaker for me was the fact that none of the cables were actually braided. Every single cable was just a rubber wire, which obviously, if there's a lot of them, they can be all over the place and take up just a shitload of space. On top of that, this case does not have a lot of room in the back to work with to actually hide your cables. What I did was I tried to zip tie everything as tight as I can. It is not the cleanest cable management job, but it's the best I could do with the circumstances. A lot of my cables I did have to shove into the crevices of the case, kind of at the bottom and off to the sides, so that helped out a bunch just so I can shut the door. I feel like if they just make this case a little bit wider, it would just help everybody out a lot more with just cable management and just working in it in general. And please, Gamdias, please braid or sleeve at least some of the cables. Sleeving makes everything look just a lot cleaner and is 10 times easier to work with than just exposed rubber wires, which, like I said, was one of the biggest deal breakers for me. Alright, so at this point, it was basically time to take off all of the plastic cover on the tempered glass, plug this bad boy in, and check out how everything looks and works. I gotta say that the LEDs look fantastic. The RGB fans actually look like the picture on the box, and that to me is just mind-boggling. This case is actually super bright. They outdid themselves with the RGB design on this case, so big applause to you, Gamdias. As you can see from the videos, this case looks absolutely stunning. We have about a total of 5 RGB fans, 1 RGB power supply, and the whole case just lights up and looks absolutely amazing. All the fans are also synced up via this controller in the back of the case, which I did not show you guys. And what I forgot to mention was the cooler actually comes with its own controller where you can set up to have a remote going, so you can control the LEDs and the design of it from a remote. In the front of the case, you can click a button which will cycle through all the different styles of the LEDs. So you can go from a couple of different designs to some static color options, which is a really cool touch in my opinion. I'm going to close out this review with a couple of miscellaneous criticisms. One thing I did not enjoy about this case is the rubber feet were super griipy on the table. Therefore, moving it was just a challenge every single time. The feet themselves left some really weird black marks on my table, which fortunately washed off really easily. But until I cleaned the feet of the case, I had black marks all over my table after building this computer. Another big thing for me was some of the panels weren't actually properly lined up. So in some angles where the door closes, it was kind of hard to shut without force, or there was a slight gap in between the glass and the panel itself. So that kind of made me a little bit uneasy, you can say. Other than that, it's a pretty solid case, has a really slick design, super bright. The RGBs look amazing. It has adequate space. You can swing open the doors without having to take the panels out every single time, and just overall does the job for housing your components. However, if you're looking for a case that's more durable, has a lot more space for cable management, unfortunately, the case isn't for you. It is, however, an amazing case for the RGB lighting, and that is what makes me really excited about using this case from this point on. I want to thank Gamdias for sending me out these 3 things. I'm going to have an amazing time having this centerpiece in my room with all the RGB lighting effects. If you guys want to check out Gamdias, their links will be down in the description. I hope to work with them some more, as I think they're a fantastic company who have massively progressed throughout the time that I've been working with them. I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. My name is LongBarrel, and remember, be water, my friends.